trying to keep up with the tech world these days, it's like drinking from a fire hose, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to AI and all the changes happening in cloud infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone listening probably feels that pressure, you know,
For
to
sure.
stay informed and not fall behind.
Yeah, trying to keep up with the signal and not get lost in all the noise.
Exactly.
It's a lot.
And that's really what we're all about here, helping you get to the most important stuff without getting overwhelmed.
Absolutely. Cutting through the clutter and figuring out how this all impacts how we build and run technology, on a practical level.
So today we're going to do a deep dive into a recent newsletter.
Okay.
It's called Beyond the Code with Prateek Edition, #2.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, it's from Prateek Singh. And one of the things that immediately stood out to me about it was Prateek's own journey. He went from being a staff software engineer at LinkedIn, a pretty stable gig, to founding Ganak AI Labs, his own startup. So we're going to be exploring that decision, that leap of faith to build something from the ground up.
That's a fascinating angle. And this newsletter, it isn't just about one person's experience.
Right.
It gives us a really valuable snapshot of what's happening in a few key areas right now.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the rise of all these new AI-powered tools, the constant evolution of cloud computing, and even some really thoughtful reflections on the art of software engineering, the craft itself.
Yeah.
Our mission today is to distill this down to the core insights, the knowledge that can actually make a difference.
Right.
For you, the listener, and maybe uncover a few things you didn't even know you needed to know.
So let's start with Prateek's decision to go from LinkedIn to founding his own company, Ganak AI Labs. It's a bold move, right?
Yeah, it is.
What was it that made him make that jump?
What's really interesting is the problem that he's tackling.
Yeah.
It's not just about wanting a new challenge. He saw a very real frustration that engineers are facing, a pain point.
Oh, I see.
And that is the sheer complexity of managing cloud infrastructure these days.
I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah, he talks about the explosion of tools, the difficulty of navigating these increasingly intricate environments, and just trying to find the right information across all these different systems.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
Yeah, we've all been there clicking through endless dashboards trying to figure out what's going on. So Ganak AI Labs is his solution to this?
Yeah, that's the idea. Their core mission is to kind of reimagine how engineers interact with infrastructure. And they're using AI to simplify and streamline those workflows.
And they're specifically focusing on cloud infrastructure for now.
Exactly. Their first product is called Ganak Cloud.
Okay.
And it's all about making cloud environments more visual, more interactive, and even more conversational. Imagine, instead of digging through pages of configurations, you could just ask a question about your AWS setup in plain English.
That's a game changer.
Right.
I can see so many teams benefiting from that. So tell me more about Ganak Cloud. What can it actually do?
So a few key things really stand out.
Okay.
First, it can automatically generate cloud architecture diagrams.
Wow.
Think about the time you could save onboarding new team members or documenting existing systems. Then there's that plain English querying we were talking about. It's designed to be super intuitive. Beyond that, they're promising real-time insights, recommendations to optimize your infrastructure, support for all the major cloud providers.
So like AWS, Azure, GCP.
All of them. Plus, you can export those dynamically generated diagrams for collaboration and further analysis.
Yeah.
Seems like a really comprehensive approach for anyone working with the cloud, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cloud architects, DevOps engineers.
Yeah, SREs, the whole crew.
Exactly. Everyone involved in keeping those systems running smoothly. Now, the name Ganak itself, it's pretty unique.
Catchy, right?
It is. Does it have a special meaning?
Yeah, it does. Ganak actually means one who computes in Sanskrit.
Oh, wow.
It's a really thoughtful choice. It connects back to the essence of computing, the people who bring order to these complex systems. And it aligns perfectly with their goal of simplifying cloud complexity.
It really does. If anyone listening is interested in following Ganak AI Labs, Prateek mentioned a waitlist in the newsletter.
Right.
Where can they sign up for that?
They can go to ganak.ai and join the waitlist there. They'll get all the latest updates.
Okay, cool. Now let's move on to some of the exciting stuff happening in AI tools.
Right.
OpenAI in particular has some new offerings that are making it easier to build AI agents. What jumped out at you there?
I think the biggest thing is how OpenAI is really pushing towards a more integrated and user-friendly way to develop these agents. The Responses API is a perfect example of that. They've basically unified their chat completions and assistance APIs into one endpoint.
Oh, interesting.
So now you can build agents that use different tools without having to manage multiple APIs.
So it simplifies the whole process.
Exactly. Less complexity, cleaner architecture. It's a big win for developers.
That's great. And they're even building in support for some commonly used tools directly into the API.
You got it. The Responses API now includes things like web search, file search, and even a beta computer use agent. They call it CUA.
Okay.
The real benefit here is that you don't have to build these basic features from scratch anymore.
Oh, that's smart.
Right. So you can get started with more sophisticated agents right out of the gate.
And it goes beyond just the API level, right? They also have this new Agents SDK.
Yeah.
What can developers do with that?
So the Agents SDK takes the Responses API and builds on it. Provides a framework for building single or multi-agent workflows.
Okay.
Super customizable, so you can integrate it with other APIs and tools. It gives you structure and flexibility.
That sounds powerful. And it seems like they're addressing the challenge of understanding how these agents actually work with better visibility and stuff.
Absolutely. Integrated observability is built right into the SDK now.
Oh, that's great.
It's a game changer.
Wow.
You get real-time tracing, debugging.
Wow.
You can really inspect the agent's execution flow. Super valuable for optimizing performance, identifying bottlenecks.
Right.
Understanding how the agent makes decisions. It's like having a detailed log of the AI's thinking process.
That level of transparency is crucial for building reliable AI applications. And they're not stopping there, are they? OpenAI is also making some really impressive progress with voice agents and audio models.
Yeah, their voice tech is amazing. Ultra-realistic text-to-speech now, with subtle nuances in emotion and tone.
Wow.
And the latency is crazy low.
So it's really close to natural human conversation.
Yeah, you can imagine how this could transform things like customer service bots, making those interactions feel much more human and empathetic.
I read that they even have an interactive demo that listeners can check out.
They do. Prateek, linked to in the newsletter. It's openai.fm. You got to hear it to believe it.
I'll definitely be checking that out. Now, OpenAI isn't the only company pushing the boundaries here. Anthropic has also introduced something called the Think tool for their Claude model.
Oh, yeah, that's really interesting.
What is that all about?
So the Think tool is all about making Claude better at tackling complex problems. It gives the model the ability to pause during a task and do some internal analysis, like it actually thinks about different parts of the problem before responding.
So it's a more deliberate and transparent reasoning process.
Yeah, it's like Claude is showing its work as it goes.
That's cool. How is that different from the extended thinking that these models already do?
Good question. So extended thinking usually happens before the model gives you its first response. The Think tool is more of an active back and forth, refining the response as it goes along.
Oh, I see.
It helps break down a task into smaller steps.
Okay.
Makes the whole process more manageable.
And have they seen any improvements in Claude's performance with this Think tool?
They have. They ran evaluations using this benchmark called Bench, which basically tests how well a model can reason about policies and stuff. And the Think tool showed some really significant gains, especially in those tricky real-world scenarios like airline customer support, where the rules can be super complicated.
So it's not just a theoretical improvement, it actually works.
Exactly. It has real implications for making these systems more reliable, more capable of handling those messy real-world situations.
This all brings up a really important question for anyone working with large language models, like how do you pick the right tool for the job?
Right.
The newsletter compares the OpenAI agents, SDK, and LangChain.
Yeah.
For someone trying to choose between those, what should they keep in mind?
Okay, so this is where it gets down to the practical considerations.
Right.
The OpenAI agents, SDK, is all about speed and ease of use. It's great if you're already using OpenAI stuff a lot. It integrates seamlessly with their models and has built-in support for those tools we talked about before, file search, code interpreter, the CUA, all of that. Plus, it takes care of managing memory and state for you, which can be a huge time saver.
So you can get prototypes up and running quickly.
Exactly. It's perfect for those straightforward tool-based applications, especially if you're sticking within the OpenAI ecosystem.
But there must be some trade-offs with something so tightly integrated.
There are. You're basically limited to OpenAI models. And you don't have as much control over how the tools and prompts are managed. It's more of a take it or leave it kind of framework.
I see. So how does LangChain compare in terms of flexibility and control?
So LangChain is a totally different beast.
Okay.
It's a much more foundational, lower-level framework, open source, and it prioritizes full control and extensibility. It has this modular architecture, so you can plug in all kinds of model providers, not just OpenAI. You can use Anthropic, Mistral, even your own locally hosted models if you want.
So it's more open-ended.
Exactly. And it can connect to tons of databases, tools, external services.
Wow.
You can build custom agents, chains of operations, RA pipelines.
Oh, yeah, that's where you integrate external data sources.
Exactly. And you have full control over the memory, the prompts, the writing logic.
So it's much more powerful, but probably more complex to set up.
Yeah, there's a steeper learning curve.
Okay.
More setup time, more engineering effort involved.
So it really depends on your needs.
For sure. If you need speed and simplicity within the OpenAI world, the SDK is a great choice. But if you need ultimate flexibility, multi-model support, and you're comfortable with more complexity, LangChain is the way to go.
There's also a really interesting section in the newsletter about AI code editors and this idea of flow state.
Oh, yeah, that hot take about Cursor. I was just thinking about that.
Prateek basically says that these AI code editors could be disrupting flow. I found that really thought-provoking. What's his reasoning there?
So he acknowledges that these editors offer some huge advantages, right?
Right. They can write code super fast.
Exactly. The code completion is amazing. It feels almost magical.
Yeah.
But he worries that they might be undermining the deep focus that we need for true flow state.
It's like the AI is doing the typing for you, but not necessarily the thinking.
Yeah, exactly. He describes feeling more reactive to the AI's suggestions.
Okay.
Second-guessing himself more, and ultimately feeling less intentional in the coding process.
And flow is more than just speed, right? It's about rhythm, focus, trust in your own abilities.
Exactly. And he questions whether these AI assistants, at least in their current form, are really preserving those elements. There's a concern that we're sacrificing engagement and craftsmanship for the sake of speed.
He does acknowledge the counter-argument, though, that sometimes the goal is just to get the code written and shipped.
Right, value creation above all else.
But he brings up a really important point about the potential downsides.
Yeah, he says that even if the AI helps you write functional code faster, those constant interruptions to your thinking process could actually be detrimental to the overall quality of the software.
Okay.
You might miss important architectural considerations, not handle edge cases as well.
Right.
And the code might be harder to maintain in the long run.
So flow isn't just about feeling good, it's about doing your best work.
Exactly. Clarity of thought, quality, craft, all of that.
It's a really important consideration as these tools become more and more integrated into our workflows. How do we balance the benefits with the potential downsides?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. Now, the newsletter also touches on something that I think a lot of people can relate to, and that's Prateek's own experience transitioning out of the corporate world.
Oh, yeah. After 13 years, that's a big change.
What were some of the insights he shared about that?
You know, it struck me.
Yeah.
He talked about how that Monday to Friday work mentality was so deeply ingrained. Even after leaving that corporate structure, it was hard to break free from those default settings.
Right, like your brain is still wired for that 9 to 5 schedule.
Exactly. And he said at first it was weird. Every day felt like a blend of Monday and Sunday.
Yeah, no clear separation.
Right. But instead of forcing himself into a new rigid schedule, he decided to try something different.
Oh, interesting. What did he do?
He adopted a new set of guiding principles.
Oh, okay.
He focuses on his energy levels instead of feeling that constant urgency. He's really intentional about his goals rather than just sticking to routine.
Okay.
And he allows himself to get into those flow states instead of being tied to a fixed calendar.
So it's about finding a more organic and sustainable rhythm.
Exactly. He's embracing the freedom, but also the responsibility of setting his own pace. You know, focusing on what truly matters for his well-being and the success of his company.
It's a really inspiring message. So to wrap things up, this newsletter from Prateek Singh is packed with insights.
It really is.
We learned about the latest advancements in AI agent development, both from OpenAI and Anthropic.
Right.
We got a clear breakdown of when to use the OpenAI agents SDK versus LangChain. We explored the potential impact of AI code editors on our flow state.
That was a good one.
And we got some really personal reflections on what it's like to leave corporate life and become a founder.
A lot to think about.
For sure. And it leaves us with some questions. As AI becomes more and more a part of our lives, how will we protect our ability to do deep work?
Yeah.
How do we maintain that sense of craft? And how do we create those sustainable rhythms that balance our productivity with our well-being?
Big questions.
These are things we should all be thinking about as we navigate this new landscape. So I encourage you to explore the tools and concepts we've discussed today and keep those questions in mind. This deep dive into Prateek's newsletter has given us a lot to consider.
It really has.
So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you then.